Kia ora, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for today's short webinar on Are You Selling Yourself Short and how to figure out if you have just the right pricing for your tourism business. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be a little bit of a different webinar, podcast, interactive kind of forum between myself, Gina Paladini, Marketing Director at Jon Randles, who is joining us as our special guest today. So let's start off by me introducing Jon Randles and why we have chosen him to be our special guest today. So often when you look at somebody's LinkedIn, you look at what they've done, right? So if you went before this webinar and tried to figure out why we invited him for today's webinar, you'd see that Jon Randles used to be a business banking manager at ANZ. And for 8 years, he ran a property investment company. But most notably, Jon Randles has been known as the co-founder of Mosh Social, which was the first big social media agency in New Zealand. But what most people don't know about Jon and it's his journey and who he is. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Because Jon, when he was running one of his agency, despite the outward appearances of being beautiful and flash and nationwide doing amazing, was actually struggling financially. They were in debt. And when you're in debt, it brings on stress, right? And when you're in stress, you're not making the best decisions and really thinking about the best for your business. And so that's when Jon realized something has to change. One of our favorite sayings is, right, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And Jon knew something had to change. So he turned to an external advisor. He got a business coach. And within 12 months, they increased turnover by 32% and had a profit margin of 870%. And I don't know about you, but that would be amazing, a profit margin of 870%. This experience for Jon had him change direction, and now he is a business advisor. And we have had the privilege of working with him. And we have now worked together for I don't know how many years. But the thing about Jon is he explains things and breaks it down into bite-sized pieces so it makes sense, so it's actionable, it's fun, and it's visual. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to turn on our presentation. And Jon, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Yeah, yes, I'm a simple man, and so I do like to keep things as simple as possible. One of the reasons I was really happy to be asked to come in for this particular segment is pricing. It can be such a challenge, like it can be a real, like a mind thing for people going, well, what are my competitors doing? What if I charge this and people run away? Or it's complicated to get into. But if we get it right, it can have instant impact onto our business. It can have instant impact on our bottom line, and it can have instant impact into our back pocket or our bank account. When we do other changes in business, for example, might be a staff training or a productivity, that can take a little while before we might see the results. But if we can do price things correctly, again, it can happen instantly. So again, I'm proof that a few quick changes can make a monumental impact. So very happy to be here, and hopefully people get something out of it.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining us. So what are we going to be going through? We've got 30 minutes of us chatting, but please know that that chat is available for you to ask questions. So we don't want this to be a monologue. In fact, we only have a couple of slides. So ask your questions. We already have 2 questions that have been sent in actually by people, so we'll get to those. But what we'll start off is to spark some ideas, and that is how to value your products. Then how do we increase that profit margin? And we wanted to make sure that these new styles of webinar podcast actionable were really actionable. So we're actually going to go through a couple of worksheets and how to use them. And when we send you this recording, we'll also send you the worksheet. So if you think it's worth it, you can use them. So you got some free takeaways. Then we'll answer some questions. So let's kick into it. John, what are the common pricing mistakes businesses make, and how can those be avoided?
So I've got three things like top of mind that I really wanted to get into. So one of the biggest mistakes I think is people don't factor in their time.
Mm,
Business owners, they don't factor in the time of them doing particular tasks. And so I think we'll get into that a little bit later, but that would be one of the really
mm,
big ones. Um, Also, not looking at the big picture as far as our pricing goes. So when we're looking at how much should I charge for this coffee, we should be saying, how much do I want to make out of my business?
mm.
And then looking at all the incidental things that are going to make that up. So uh, not factoring time, not really taking a look at the big picture at the beginning, and misunderstanding value and price.
Mm,
And so as soon as, we think, how much should we charge for this? When we flip it and say, how much value am I delivering for this? How much is this worth to this particular customer? So a customer in Otago, Otago in summer might really appreciate an eye mask at night because it's bloody light until really late. In that part of the world where that's not going to be as valuable to someone, say, in Northland at the
yeah.
same kind of time. So big time, big picture, and really dialing in on value. So that's
Mm.
the stuff that I think we should sort of get into today.
It's really a flip. I love that, when you and I were prepping for this and trying to decide how we were going to approach this big subject and make it valuable for everybody. I really loved when you brought up that it's a flip to say, okay, if I'm going to dedicate my life to this business, how much do I need to make out of this business, right?
Mm,
And then break it down how you make it happen, as opposed to saying, I'm going to sell my rooms at this much because that's what my competitor is, or I'm going to sell the tours at this much. And then I've got to go, now, how am I going to get enough of those sold? Right. So I thought that
yep.
was really interesting. So I love that we're starting there. Now you wanted me to bring up this little slide of yours. What's this one all about?
Yeah, so this is a business owner very much in any industry that it's so easy to be so busy. If you're an accommodation provider, we're cleaning the rooms, we're letting the people in, we're checking them in, checking them out, we're giving them directions, you should do this. And then we're so busy in the business that every now and then we might get a chance to be on the business, and
Mm,
we read something or we see something or the competitors doing something and we go, oh, I'm going to try that. And we run over there and we start trying something, and then we get back in the business, we come up again, "Oh, I'm going to try that now." And we zigzag, and we can be in business 10 years without moving forward.
mm,
And so this is around, yeah, just showing, and I bet, like, if I ask people to put their hands up, I can't see them, um, that we would all have had this kind of experience. We would have all had that feeling of, that sort of back and forth.
yeah.
Um, and so what we want to do is move away from chasing bright ideas, because there's another slide, um, to the right idea. And this is
Mm,
taking I guess, a strategic approach of working on one part of the business at a time, one sector of your products or services at a time, and just really focusing on things until we go, yep, that's done, or good enough is done, and then I go to the next one.
mhm.
And the idea is that we're working towards a North Star,
Yeah.
and that whole big picture. How much do I want to make out of this business? Setting a goal or a target, and it might not be in 1 year. It might be a 3-year target that we start to go. okay, I'm going to be in this business for the next 3 years because I've been in it for the last 5 or 10. So what do I want that to look like? And
Mm,
then, okay, then so 12 months, what does that need to look like? And
mm,
where do I need to start? And I totally understand it's easy to say this stuff, um, but this is how you build or get a transformation in your business. This is how we would get that upward curve, and you don't feel like you're on that wheel. Because
nice.
I'm where I am last year, or I'm worse. I'm going down the red.
Mm,
Um, so yes,
nice.
really key having those key areas to focus on.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about what are the common mistakes, and it's the not valuing your time. Um, what you and I also were talking about, what are the key factors that need to be considered? So when we're putting together our pricing structure, what are the key factors? You're saying time is one. So how do we value our time?
Yeah, so there's a really simple exercise that I like to do with people that we kind of discussed. And, it's saying to a business owner, I want you to get a piece of paper and put a line down the middle of it. And on the left-hand side, write down what I would call your low payoff activities. So what are and let's put a number on it. What are the $25 an hour tasks that you do? And so I would say checking email,
Yeah.
responding to the same questions over and over,
Yeah.
cleaning even. A lot of these services, so just listing them. On the other side of the paper, it's the high payoff activities, the HPAs. These are, we would call them $250 an hour tasks.
Mm,
Essentially, these are what is going to make the business money. So I
mm,
would put things like sales, marketing, strategy. So working with a coach or an advisor or someone, like in a planning. So, and then the idea is, you look at your days, be quite ruthless, list those tasks and work out how much time am I putting in this low payoff activity box, and how much
hmm.
time am I putting in the high payoff activity one? Because the more we can put over here, then the more the business, I promise you, will start moving forward faster.
So this is that
So
worksheet so this is the worksheet that you were looking at. And so some examples that you shared. So if we looked at, so one of the things with business owners is we don't add our time into the formula or the consideration of our pricing. And we get caught up in thinking that we have to answer every single email, as opposed to using a chat bot, as opposed to having a virtual assistant, right? Um, and then you said that things that are high value are doing sales. So in tourism, what that would mean is getting in front of the agents, right? The inbound agents that bring you in sales. It might be sitting with a client and telling a story of something that happened or giving advice, because that's what's really valued. Is that what you mean on how this worksheet would get used?
for sure, you're not showing the worksheet if that's what you're. Uh,
Oh no.
but while you bring that up, um,
Yes.
I was thinking, just getting, for example, getting feedback from the guests, and we were talking about this, like setting yourself a target. It's all good getting testimonials and getting feedback, but if we do it we want to be doing it in a structured way. And I love to put numbers on things. So, for example, because we don't always have heaps of time at the beginning, but maybe you have to talk to one customer a week and go through some, almost like a feedback form. You're kind of interviewing them, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you give them a chocolate for their time or something. But hey, you've been staying here for a little while, or you've tried our service. I'd really love to get your opinion. What of these 5 things, what are your answers, or where do you find the most value? Because if we find, let's say there's 5 questions or there's 5 services, and they get a lot of value out of number 3, we can potentially put the price up on number 3. And because if we focus on the value of it, we know people are getting something. And potentially that means we don't have to put prices up on other areas.
Yeah.
So it's really important, again, when we look at the business as a whole, that, instead of going in and saying, right, put all your pricing up, that's not helpful. That might drive people away. But if we work out where we are much better, or we can show more value than, every other Tom, Dick, and Harry in our space, then we can certainly be charging more. And then the conversation stops being around price and it starts being around the value. So if we
Yeah.
just keep focusing on the value we're delivering, price stops being an option.
You know what? I've got a great example. I love that. I love that that focus on the value. When I was an inbounder, I used to work with this beautiful Maori tour operator in Rotorua, and his name was Roger. And Roger gave the most authentic, fun, amazing one-day private tours. Yeah. And one day I said to him, I went, Roger, your vehicle is so old and beat up. Why don't you get a new vehicle? And that was like, my American brain, new to New Zealand, new to tourism, just like, my flippin' no filter mouth kind of going on. And he went, Gina, there's no value in the vehicle. Nobody cares about my vehicle. People care about my stories and the special places I take them to that nobody can. And, it was just such a light bulb moment. It's absolutely right. Nobody valued, it's not the vehicle. It was the special places, it
Yep.
was his stories, and it was the time that he gave during those tours one-on-one. So, if you're an accommodation provider and you feel like I can't afford a cleaner, but if you did pay for the cleaner, does that mean you have more time to spend with your visitors? Does it mean you have more time to go visit an inbounder who's going to be bringing you? So I love this valuing your time, going through this exercise to make you really look at your time, valuing it. And your whole concept that we're going to talk about with pricing strategies is starting with, what does this business need to feed me for me to keep thriving and enjoying it, right?
So what I'd like to do, because I can get quite big picturey, as I'm sure people have felt, but there's definitely some concrete things that I just really want to make sure people can take away and sort of use this. So one is definitely that time list. So where am I spending, where does my time go? Oh my God, it's all in this place. Another thing I think is really key is just, obviously we might have like a Zero or whatever. But even if you're taking the stuff out of Zero, your expenses, putting them into a spreadsheet or whatever, and just being really rigorous on those. So do you need that subscription? Do you, really looking at those kind of things? How many people are you paying to do X, Y, Z? What are you printing? Like all these small, how many vehicles do you have? Why do you have 5 if there's only 2 being utilized? So just really being vigorous on that is a really good place to start. And in a, obviously tourism is quite seasonal, really looking at, and so in my low season, should you be better renting a piece of equipment rather than buying it because you don't use it in the season? So really, really being strict on those kind of costs. It's just good discipline at any time for any business, but particularly if you're starting to feel that kind of pinch. And then, so there's time, there's your costs, and then listing, like I said, looking at the business as a whole. What are your products and services, even down to the cups of coffee that you sell? Like, what are you charging for those? And like I said, this, it's not easy. Well, it's easy. It just takes a little bit of work, but really listing down all those things. And then, the idea is, how much do we want to make out of this business? Because I promise you, there's a lot of business owners out there who could be making far more in a job and probably working less. So as business owners, we have taken risk to build our enterprise. We have taken risk to try to build the lifestyle that we're trying to design for ourselves. That should be our goal. So when we look at our costs and we know what we need to meet, and then we look at how much we want to make from this enterprise at this given time, then we go through our products and services and where can we put it up. And because we're more value, or it hasn't changed for a long time, even down to the cups of coffee. There's a hotel that I regularly have meetings with. They charge me $6.50 for my long black, and it's a really nice hotel lobby. Like, it's quiet. It's better than a cafe for meetings, all that kind of thing. And every time I do it, I go, wow, it's $6.50. And has it ever stopped me from going? No, because it has the value. They're not the cheapest, unashamedly. They're not saying come in, we're the cheapest. They are showing quality and service, which is something else we had talked about. So sorry, I'll keep going and then you can jump in. There's some questions we can answer as well.
Yeah.
As a business, where a lot of people go wrong, I'm about to draw a triangle, that's why my fingers are here, is customers are looking for price, quality, and service. They think they want price. Generally, people go, how much does it cost? They think they want price. But when quality and service, they might matter much more to different people. So as a business owner, you cannot compete on all three fronts. It is a fast track to the red zone, and I've been there. We don't want to go into the red zone. You can be the price guy. You can focus on price. You can be the cheapest. So, for example, a $2 shop, they are the cheapest. If I buy something and it breaks down, in 2 months later, I just go, oh, and I go and buy another one, because my expectations are they are cheap. I'm not thinking about quality and service.
Yeah.
If I buy a
Domino's
Maserati,
pizza. Domino's
yeah, totally.
Compared to, yeah.
Yep. So a Domino's for $5, you go, oh, doesn't taste so good, but you buy it again because it's $5 or whatever. But if your focus as the consumer is on quality, you're not going to buy the Domino's, and you're happy to pay $25, $30 for a pizza instead of. So working out what are the customers you want to serve, what's important to them, meet that need, and then price starts to fall away from the conversation as long as that value is being demonstrated.
So we've had some really good comments, and sorry, I'm juggling some new technology here, team. So thanks for your patience while I finally found speaker view. But we've got some people saying, yes, we don't value our time. So thanks for bringing that up. And quality, if you're going to be going for quality, you got to value it. You have to convey that that's
Yes.
what you offer, and unashamedly be proud of the value. And one of the favorite things I want to get to, because we don't have very much time, because you and I talk too much. One of my favorite things that we're going to get to is that amazing graph that you have about discounting or increasing your price. But let me really, really quickly get you to talk about. There are different pricing strategies. We've got the value base, which we've been talking about, and how you can calculate value. We've got looking at your competitor and competitor based. We have cost plus. Yeah. No, so everybody that's listening, we actually have lots of material to send you afterwards where we break all of this down. Really common in tourism to have seasonal, right? You have to have seasonal based on demand. We know it's winter. In winter, you've got the domestic market and some Aussies coming over. Don't have the high paying internationals all the time. You've got seasonal. And then we've got that discount and last minute pricing. So we're going to get to that next. How do you feel? Yeah?
Good.
Okay. Let's see if I can make this work again. So you want to
Yes.
share what happens when people discount their prices.
Yeah, so first up, everyone, don't be afraid of a page full of numbers. So for some of us who aren't number literate and they jumped out of fifth form maths or whatever it was, don't panic. I've got you. I'm going to look after you. So this matrix, the idea is to show you how uh, how how powerful discounting can be in the wrong way, like how much it can really hurt our business. And as a nice Kiwi bloke, been running my business for a while, and Shirley comes through all the time, and I like Shirley, so why wouldn't I give Shirley a 20% discount? I love Shirley. She's wonderful. She comes in, she smiles, we have a chat. So of course I give Shirley a 20% discount. Robert, my old mate from school, every now and then he comes in, and so again, he's a good bloke, so 10% off for Robert. But when we look at what this does to our business, what this does to our bottom line, and I bet you your bottom line will impact your life, your feeling, your family, the way that you can, your business is there to help you and your family. When I show you how discounting impacts that, I really hope that you'll take a second look. And Robert, if he's your mate, it might be time for him to start supporting your business with the pricing. So let's just say you had and I'll just stick with the 20% margin. And Gina, I don't know if you can put your mouse over the 20% margin, that top left box. Yeah. So our business, let's say, we buy something for $1 and we sell it for $1.20. The idea, so with Shirley, well, let's just go with Robert. If we give Robert his 10% discount, so if you can come down there, Gina, yep, we have to increase our sales by 100% to keep the same amount of profit. You have to double your sales every time you're doing a 10% discount because our profit margin is only 20%. And I just want to say that again, because Robert's been coming in for years and we really like Robert, and he's a mate. Why don't we give him his 10%? If your margin, so the only money that you get to take home to feed your family before the tax even, so there's not a lot there. We are giving it away to Robert, and we have to sell double the amount just to keep the same amount of profit that we're taking. And if any of you are finding sales and leads hard to come by, particularly in this sort of economic climate, then it's worth looking Robert in the eyes and saying, mate, I need you to support me the way I've been supporting you all the years. So it's very, very impactful. And we're going to give you this, and it is worth sitting down. Some of my clients, they put this next to their computer whenever they're creating proposals or quotes, just as a reminder. Because again, it's so easy. As a nice person, why wouldn't I someone 20%? So if we had a 30% margin, and Shirley, we gave her 20% off, sales have to increase by 200% to keep the same amount of margin. Yep, just yeah. Like,
And
it
I
wasn't
think that
really
that's
until
what,
I sort of looked at this stuff that it impacted me.
yeah. And look at, this is the same message that Tourism New Zealand's been telling us for a couple of years, right? They're like, add value, don't discount, because they know as a tourism industry, we're owner operated, we're very people oriented industry. Sales go down, so we're like, okay, we discount, right? And so the message from Tourism New Zealand has been for a couple of years, add value, don't discount, right? And so I think for a lot of people, we did that. It's like, but how, and why? And I think this is answering that how and why. And I just want to ask if people who are live with us right now, can you give us a thumbs up or any kind of emoji or a word to let us know, does this make sense? Is this new to you? Have you always known that? Because we'd like to get your feedback to know if this is of value, because we got more webinars coming up and we want to know what you guys, what's of value to you guys. Now, and while you guys are doing that, John, what's the opposite? How does increasing your prices help the business?
So a big fear for a lot of business owners is if I put my prices up, I'm going to lose customers. But again, if we play by the same rules, and let's say we've got a 20% margin, if we put our price up by 10%, your sales would have to decline by 33%. We could lose a third of our sales. If you've got repeat customers, we could lose a third of our customer base without our profit being reduced. So if you've got headaches of rats and mice customers, they're a really good one to test out your pricing first. Like you put the price up for them at the beginning, because if you chase away the rats and mice, you're just left with the cream.
Yeah. A lot of people do this, a lot of people will say, oh, I really don't like booking.com customers. So they'll put up the price on booking.com because rate parity is no longer legal. And so I've seen some customers actually do this by saying, I don't like the people that come through that channel, but I still want to be on that channel because a lot of people will use the OTAs, get your guide or TripAdvisor and then go directly to their website. So I think that's a really good example on how that could be used.
Yeah, and again, the one of the the biggest moments in my business career was when I first fired a client, and like that felt so powerful of being able to say, actually, the grief that you're giving me is not worth the amount being spent. And then later on in the years, having pain in the ass pricing would mean we could go like we can put extra resource behind something. I could buy an extra bottle of wine to deal with the stress, because that client is paying for the bottle of wine. So rather than holding on, like not all money is good money. That's another takeaway I would like people to walk away with. Not all money is good money. Not all customers are good customers. So if we are priced for the value, we're going to get the better ones.
And I'll give another example. I've had some customers, a customer in particular that I'm thinking of going, Gina, this agent gives me so much business, but the customers are difficult and they pay so slow. It's July and I'm still waiting to be paid for customers that were here in February. So that might be an example of how maybe that's bad money. Maybe, so I guess what we're doing right now in this webinar is really just challenging people to think about pricing differently, right? Think about what does your business actually need to make so that you get the lifestyle and the reward that you deserve and that you feel like you're thriving. How do you value your time so it becomes part of your pricing equation? Think about that triangle: quality, price,
service.
service. You can only do 2 or 3. So what 2 out of the 3 do you really want to focus on? In the follow-up to this webinar, you're going to get these worksheets. You're also going to get a big article that shows you, it's got a formula on how you can actually calculate it and how you can base it on value. Looking at some of the questions that have come in, as you can tell, I'm trying to wrap up because time's running, is that we had a couple of questions come in prior. And one that I really love is from Charlotte and Mike at Riverstone Motel. Am I sharing? No, I'm not. Okay. And they say, we view Airbnb rather than other motels or hotels as our main competitor. How do we best price check against them if we're using a strategy for competitor-based pricing? Now I'll take that one, John. I'm in the United States right now working remotely, and it's very, very interesting to see what's happening over here. The state of California is actually in a huge lawsuit against Airbnb about transparency of their pricing. Yeah. Because they have so many hidden fees. And as these guys say, how it's not fair because when people are doing competitive pricing, how does it work? So what am I saying? 2 things. Number one, there is a lot of actions against Airbnb that they have to be more transparent with their pricing. And 2, how can you do it for your own business? Basically add 20% to an Airbnb rate. So if an Airbnb down the street from you is at $100, add 20% to get the host fees that are being added in, the cleaning fees, because it's plus cleaning and it's plus tax. Yeah. So the 3 main fees that get added in are that Airbnb service fee, the cleaning fee, and the tax. There's also lots of other ones that are additional with Airbnb, additional people, additional this, additional that. But the rule that you will usually find is that the price that you see on Airbnb, it's anywhere from 16 to 20% additional. So that is the answer for Charlotte and Mike.
And I would just jump in there and just say, and communicating that. So whether it's on your website or whether it's on your advertising or your marketing or whatever, like really communicating that this is your final price compared to the others, or having a bit of an attack there.
There's also a question from Susie. I love how you spell your name, Susie. And she's asking about, hey, what do you mean rate parity is no longer a legal thing? So what I mean by that, I did say it a little flippantly, so thanks for calling me on it. So back in the day, like not that long ago, Booking.com and Expedia and some of the other OTAs would drop you if they saw that you had a lesser rate on another OTA or on your own website. That's no longer true. They can't and they won't. I don't know about Viator's rules. So Viator, owned by TripAdvisor, it's probably a good one for us to do research on, and we'll get back to you in the follow-up from this. But I would think if the big OTAs can't enforce it, that Viator can't either. That is my hope. That is not my advice or my word, but we'll get back to you on that. Another question. We've got 5 minutes left. So John, let me throw one to you from Antonia. She is from Randon Farm. Randon, I'm hopefully saying that properly. What would you charge for a wedding venue with a real Kiwiana venue? It does not include food, accommodation, or anything. What would be your response to Antonia on that?
Yeah, so again, the whole idea is, what's the value that you're providing? So what do they get? Is it going to be the best experience of their life, or is it going to be like a pretty good wedding? And so, there's real differences there. You can spend $100,000 on a wedding venue, or you could spend 10. So, having a really good feel, what is the value that you're offering? How well does that get communicated? So does your website look like $100,000 website, or does it look like a $10,000 one? Because all that branding, I would really put it down to your branding and communication, as well as, the actual event itself and what you put on is going to determine kind of the price that you can charge. So and a quick rule of thumb then, without getting into that, is looking at other competitors, seeing where you feel like you fit, and if you're a little bit more, you could do a better job than them, then we can price accordingly. And of course, you have done your sums first.
And you get back to that triangle, right? So
Yes.
are you trying to be quality? Is it the service? Or are you just trying to do lots and lots of weddings? So you're going to be less expensive so that you can do more, right? And so I really love the whole thing of thinking about that triangle. Which 2 out of the 3 do you want to be? Go back to what do we want to make out of this business? So out of your Kiwi on a venue, at the end of a year, what do you want to make out of this? Pick your 2 out of 3, and then don't forget to calculate your value for your time, because I'm going to tell one more really quick story in 3 minutes. We have a new customer, and it's absolutely beautiful lodge, and they've got phenomenal gardens, and they're about to open. And she said, "Oh, Gina, the local garden society wants to come do a tour, so I'm going to do it for free." And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. How much time are you going to spend getting your gardens ready? I know you're going to end up baking scones. You're going to spend the whole day with them. Where's your value, right? So this whole day today in our short webinar was really to get you guys to think about your business, try and change the way you're viewing your business and your pricing. Before we go, let me share screen again. Oh, got it. Let me introduce to you that our next webinar podcast, interactive with takeaway worksheets, is the 4th of September with Regan. She is our amazing operations manager at ResBook, and she's going to be talking about fixing your marketing mix. Where should you be looking at for your marketing, or where you shouldn't, and what do you do with it? And if you guys like this interactive style of learning and learning in quick bites, we're actually going to be running some tourism business boot camps. It is just 1 hour for 5 days in a row, 12 till 1 o'clock, Monday to Friday. We're going to go over these 5 different topics, and I'll be running them, so you're going to have to listen to my voice, but I promise we'll make it fun and actionable. There's a little QR code if you want to learn more. And I would like to end by saying thank you very, very much to everybody who attended, anybody who's watching the webinar, and especially to you, Mr. Jon Randles, for your amazing brain and breaking it down for us and having us think differently about our businesses.
Yep, no, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. And again, I'm just real passionate about businesses and business owners, because there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And a profitable business can alleviate a lot of that stress, because you can buy that extra bottle of wine.
I love it. All right, kia ora. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.